Revealed. How a demanding daughter-in-law's pregnancy led to an incredible transformation at 60. In a tidy kitchen in suburban Ohio, Emily stirred a pot of apples simmering on the stove, the familiar scent of cinnamon wafting through the air. As silver hair framed her face, she felt the vibrant energy of her grandchildren's laughter echoing from the living room. But just beyond that warmth loomed an undeniable chill. Claire, the demanding daughter-in-law, who meticulously orchestrated family life according to her own ambitious standards, was pregnant. Instead of joyous anticipation, disbelief coiled tightly in Emily's chest. Was this the moment she would finally step into the background? The relic of a bygone era? Sipping coffee from a chipped mug, Emily stared out the window, tracing the lines of the neatly trimmed hedges with her gaze. She had spent decades nurturing her family, quietly sacrificing her own aspirations as her children's needs overshadowed her own dreams. But the idea of Claire ushering in a new generation filled her with a keen sense of dread. Feeling invisible, an unsettling realization dawned on her. What if Claire's motherhood left no room for her? Days turned into a cycle of creating perfectly curated family photos and prepping for a grand event that wasn't even hers. With Claire's polished vision contrasting starkly against Emily's innate comfort in chaos, she often found herself lost, a faded photograph in a vibrant album. The pressure to conform to modern standards of motherhood felt suffocating, and bitterness brewed silently within her. One rainy afternoon, feeling the walls close in, Emily stumbled upon her old art supplies. Dusty brushes and half-remembered sketches stirred something long buried within her. As she squeezed color onto the palette, a flood of emotions poured out. Every brushstroke screamed for recognition, for agency. Who was she beyond being a nurturing grandmother? But uncertainty crept in. What would her family think if they discovered this hidden facet of herself? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Each rejection from the local gallery weighed heavily on her spirit, causing muscle knots to form in her shoulders. Perhaps critics were right. An elderly woman dabbling in art seemed laughable in a world obsessed with youth. Claire thrived amid the chaos of her life, and Emily felt like a broken compass lost in unfamiliar territory. As she prepared for an upcoming exhibition, Emily's heart raced with equal parts excitement and dread. However, the moment she finished a painting of a swirling sky, the colors vibrant and tumultuous, her heart sank under the weight of expectations. They mirrored her own desperate search for meaning amid the harshness of modern motherhood. Would Claire recognize this? The rift between their worlds felt wider, and Emily was perched on the brink of vulnerability. The night of the art opening arrived, and as Emily observed Claire navigate her struggles in the bustling crowd, hope flickered. Could this event change everything? Would Claire see her, or remain the same? Her nest of expectations smothering Emily's fragile emergence as an artist? Standing before friends and strangers, Emily braced for the unpredictable. Would she claim her voice, or remain imprisoned by the legacy of a life lived for others? The gallery buzzed with chatter, the air thick with the fragrance of aged wood and fresh paint. Emily felt the weight of her own heartbeat echoing loudly in her chest, a silent drum amplifying her anxiety. She cast her gaze across the crowd, searching for Claire, but the sea of faces blurred into a tapestry of uncertainty. Would her daughter-in-law appreciate the work, or would it simply be another validation of her preconceived judgments? As she navigated the crowd, comments floated around her like confetti, sweet and sticky. Isn't it lovely? Such vibrant colors. Who would have thought Emily had this in her? The praises were both a balm and a dagger, a reminder that the very talents she had long hidden were now on display for all to see. Each smile from a stranger felt like an invitation to reclaim her identity, forcing her to confront the intricate layers of her own existence. Amid the swirling colors of her paintings, Emily's thoughts collided. What did it mean to be seen? For years, her existence molded around familial duties deprived her of self-recognition. Now, with her artwork spread before her, she questioned whether she might finally grasp a fragment of her own narrative. Was she merely the grandmother, the passive observer, or could she become a key participant in her family's story? As the night rolled on, Emily caught a glimpse of Claire. Her daughter-in-law stood in front of Emily's work, brows knitted in concentration. Had Claire ever looked at her with such intensity before? The thought filled Emily with an unexpected rush of hope, muddled with confusion. Would Claire's traditional views shatter at the sight of her creative vulnerability, or reinforce the narrative that Emily should remain silent and compliant? You've really put yourself out there, haven't you? Claire's voice cut through the clamor, laced with a mixture of respect and disbelief. Emily turned to face her, forcing herself to take a steady breath. This was the moment that could define the new dynamic of their relationship. Would she hide behind the mask of the accommodating grandmother, or step into the light, ready to assert her identity? It's been a journey, Emily admitted, her voice trembling slightly. The realization of that truth hung heavily between them, amplifying the gap they had traversed but also illuminating a new potential. Admiration flickered in Claire's eyes. Emily noticed how her daughter-in-law's demeanor shifted. Perhaps this was an opportunity for connection, a bridge built over an ocean of misunderstanding. The conversation flowed more freely, thoughts tumbling over one another. As Emily shared her inspiration behind the swirling sky painting, she witnessed a spark of curiosity in Claire's gaze. A thrilling possibility began to take root in Emily's mind. Could the path to understanding begin here, in this moment of artistic revelation? Yet doubt gnawed at her, whispering fears that whispered she might vanish into the background once again. What would Claire's acknowledgement of her gifts mean when faced with the looming presence of motherhood? Would the newfound respect serve to empower both women or deepen their divide? Emily sensed the stakes rising and an insatiable need swelled within her, a determination to solidify her place, to earn recognition on her own terms. Yet, with the success of the evening looming ahead, was she brave enough to craft an existence that included both Grandma Emily and Artist Emily? As Claire leaned closer, an unseen crack began to form in the walls separating their lives. A revelation loomed just within reach. Yet the future remained shrouded in uncertainty. For the first time, Emily understood that every stroke of her brush was not merely about creating art. It was about affirming her essence in an expanding world. But would it be enough to hold on to her shifting ground amidst the currents of familial expectations? The room buzzed with the energy of possibility, both exhilarating and terrifying. As Emily mulled over the fate of her evolving identity, she knew she stood on the verge of a critical decision. Would she seize this moment, shaping her narrative into something profound, or would she allow doubt to guide her back into the shadows from which she had only now begun to emerge? The night was far from over, and Emily's heart raced not just for the art she had created, but for the personal evolution that beckoned to be claimed. The question lingered in her mind. Could she solidify her newfound voice before her emotional canvas bled dry? As the vibrant discussion swirled around her, Emily felt a subtle shift in her posture. An electric undercurrent coursed through her, one that paired an exhilarating exhilaration with a palpable fear. It was one thing to have her art appreciated. It was another to be truly seen, recognized for her complexities as a person rather than just a role in someone else's story. "Your colors are captivating," Claire remarked, her expression softening, revealing hints of admiration that Emily had longed to see. Yet, even as Claire complimented the work, Emily grappled with the weight of potential judgment underlying her words. Was this the real Claire, or merely a facade that would crack under scrutiny? Countless thoughts ricocheted in Emily's mind, prides of past failures, moments where she had felt insignificant, unlovable. Who was she without the title of mother and grandmother? Did her art grant her a new label that would allow for deeper intimacy with her family, or would it only serve as a reminder of her estrangement from the very people she loved? "Thank you," Emily finally replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "Creating these pieces has felt liberating. It's helped me piece together aspects of myself I thought were lost." The admission wove a fragile thread between them, and Emily could see that Claire was absorbing the words, weighing them against her own experience. This was more than pleasantries. It was a conversation pregnant with potential dialogues about expectations, passions, and vulnerable truths. But how do you find the time, with everything else you manage? Claire inquired, a genuine curiosity emerging in her tone. Emily recognized this question as the point where barriers could either dissolve or solidify. The practicalities of family life often demanded complete sacrifices, and Claire had undoubtedly embraced those demands as a mother. Emily hesitated, pondering a response that would resonate, that would strike a careful balance between the unapologetic pursuit of art and the tenderness of family obligations. I don't always succeed, she confessed. But making art reminds me of who I am outside of just being a grandmother. It's challenging, but it's crucial for my spirit. I want to show you that these pieces are part of a journey toward reclaiming the whole of me, not just fragments. Claire's brow furrowed, and for an electrifying moment, Emily felt the connection strengthen, like roots intertwining beneath the surface. But the fertile ground of understanding could easily be disrupted, and there was a risk that the honesty they shared could retreat into silence once more as familial expectations resurfaced. What about the children? Claire asked delicately, her eyes scanning the vibrant hues on the canvas behind Emily. Are you sure it's appropriate to prioritize your creativity over them? A pang struck Emily, but she fortified herself against it. Recognizing that this sentiment echoed her own fears made it harder to dismiss. Would she return to the role of self-sacrificing matriarch? Or could she redefine her responsibilities to include her own aspirations? Emily's voice softened into a whisper. It's a dance, Claire. They need me, yes, but so do I. My art can show them the value of pursuing passion, of finding one's path. I want them to see that life doesn't merely happen to us. We can shape it. Isn't that worth the effort? A moment of silence enveloped them. The air thick and charged as understanding hung precariously in the balance. Just then, a voice nearby called Claire's name, pulling her attention momentarily away from Emily. It felt like a jolt, like a reminder that the pressures of motherhood and external expectations were always lurking, waiting to reclaim their hold. As laughter erupted in the corner, Emily sensed the comfortable facade of connection begin to fray ever so slightly, generating a new sense of urgency. She was reaching a crucial juncture, ready to claim her space in this changing dialogue, but acutely aware of how easily it could slip away. Could she find a way to advocate for her artistic self, while embracing the roles of mother and grandmother meaningfully? Would her journey of self-discovery redefine her relationships, or would it instead deepen her isolation? The night had become a crucible of personal reckoning, and as Claire stepped away momentarily, Emily was abruptly brought back to the reality that the conversation was far from finished. With her heart racing, she brushed her fingers against the edge of one of her paintings, a touch grounding her amidst the swirling uncertainties. The unresolved thoughts pulsated within her, igniting a spark of resolve. She needed to assert herself, express her desires and fears head-on, or risk falling back into the shadows of silence. Just as she steeled her resolve to engage further, the lights dimmed slightly, and a hush fell over the crowd as a speaker took to the stage. What awaited her next was anyone's guess, but Emily knew the critical hour had arrived. Would she confront the duality of her existence, or would she retreat into the shadows once again? The moment loomed, and the deeper truth of her dual identity was waiting to be unveiled. As the spotlight illuminated the stage, Emily's breath hitched in her throat. The speaker, a woman with cascading dark hair and an unmistakable intensity, began sharing her journey of transformation, how she had navigated the challenging waters of self-identity amid the roles of caregiver, professional, and artist. Every word resonated with Emily, sending ripples of recognition across her own turbulent thoughts. Yet beneath that resonance lay a creeping vulnerability, an awareness of her own desires bursting at the seams. Listening about the speaker's triumphs ignited more than inspiration. It spurred a hunger within Emily to claim her narrative. Each glimmering phrase accompanied the pulse of her heart. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Yet it also bore the weight of her fears. Could she ever truly follow her passion the way the speaker had? The path seemed daunting, a series of jagged cliffs hanging over an abyss of uncertainty. And at that moment, as the audience erupted into applause, Emily felt a disconnect grow sharper. Everyone else was applauding transformation while she wrestled with her own potential stagnation. Determined not to retreat into self-doubt again, she focused on the speaker's triumphant declaration. You are never too late to reclaim your story. Those words struck like lightning. It was a powerful reminder that age didn't diminish artistic flame. It merely added depth to her experiences. With newfound clarity, Emily dared to envision what a declaration of her intent might look like. She began mentally drafting everything she would say to Claire upon their next encounter. I matter. My joy matters too. The thoughts rolled through her mind with each inhale, deeper, each exhale pushing away hesitance and doubt. Thoughts of Claire and the children swirled in her consciousness. How many times had her decisions been swayed by the invisible leash of expectation? The fear of disappointment weighed heavily on her. What would happen if she stood firm, held her convictions like a shield against criticism? The applause subsided, the lights brightened, and the session transitioned to discussions among the attendees. Multiple conversations blossomed. Laughter mingled with snippets of newfound determination. As people moved around her, Emily realized they were also in their own transformative moments, seeking connection and the bravery to step outside their limitations. Emily's mind raced with prospects, caught in the tension of both excitement and fear. She couldn't remain paralyzed in indecision. She needed to act. But the confrontation with Claire loomed like a specter, a task requiring both honesty and vulnerability. Could she risk an open dialogue? The mingling crowd parted, ushering in a tug-of-war between Emily's yearning for affirmation and the heavy ball of apprehension nestled in her stomach. Just as she resolved to initiate a conversation about her aspirations, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her son, bringing news of the family dinner planned for that weekend, yet another obligation calling her focus away from herself. A surge of resentment flared inside her, an emotion she had neglected to acknowledge. Would she be forced to submit to expectations yet again? At that moment of hesitation, she realized the invitation to the dinner could serve as a turning point. It could lay the groundwork for a conversation that reached beyond the lunch table, spoken amidst the laughter and chatter of her family. This was her chance to break the cycle of compromise. Swallowing the doubts, Emily took a breath, her resolve solidifying. She couldn't remain at the sidelines. She had to step forward, assert her voice. As she began planning her words, the room buzzed around her, oblivious yet invigorating, a cacophony of ambition and growth contrasting against the silence she often felt in family engagements. The juxtaposition was intoxicating, and as her thoughts spiraled into a web of strategies, determination surged within her. Emily felt a flicker of hope. This was not merely about art, it was about reclaiming her narrative, crafting her identity. But just as clarity brought her to the brink of a breakthrough, an unexpected figure approached. Claire was making her way through the crowd, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on Emily. In that split second, all the motivation coalesced into an urgent crescendo as Emily braced herself. Would she articulate the trembling truth within her? Or would she let the moment slip away? As Claire reached her, the air crackled with both tension and curiosity. The time had come. The moment hung suspended as Claire stood before Emily. A mixture of expectation and curiosity etched on her face. Every fiber of Emily's being urged her to speak, yet a formidable wall of apprehension threatened to choke her words before they could find their way out. What if she stumbled over her own truth? What if Claire reacted with disbelief or dismissal? In that fleeting silence, the cacophony of the crowd faded into a dull thrum, replaced by the sound of her heart thumping violently in her chest. Suddenly, Emily's resolve felt like a fragile thread teetering on the brink. She closed her eyes briefly and inhaled deeply, feeling the air fill her lungs. This was it. The opportunity she didn't know she needed. An opening to express her dormant aspirations. Claire, she finally began, forcing her voice steady. I've been meaning to talk to you about something important. Claire's brow furrowed, and she instinctively tilted her head, a gesture that unleashed a wave of anxiety in Emily. This was not just a conversation. It was a confrontation with years of expectation and fear. Yet Emily started to hear the echo of the speaker's words reverberating within her. You are never too late. She squared her shoulders, sprinkling courage through her words. I want to discuss my art. I want to create again. She felt the weight of vulnerability crash over her. But for the first time in years, it felt exhilarating. As she spoke, her voice trembled only slightly, revealing her fear while simultaneously conveying her determination. She explained her longing to reconnect with her passion, to integrate it into her life rather than relegating it to the shadows of obligation. Every phrase was a brush stroke in the canvas of her declared intent, painting a narrative of who she wanted to become. For a moment, Claire remained silent, assessing her mother-in-law with a mix of surprise and contemplation. Emily's heart raced. Had she overstepped? Were the years of familial duty now complicating her claim for artistic freedom? Claire's response finally came, a single raised brow accompanied by a gentle smile that appeared almost incredulous. "I never knew you felt that way," she said softly. "Why didn't you say anything before?" Emily flinched, a wave of realization washing over her. Why hadn't she spoken up? The answer was tangled in the web of self-doubt and fear of judgment. As Claire's inquiry lingered in the air, Emily's mind buzzed with insights. This wasn't just about Claire. It illuminated a more profound truth. The years of stifled expression and silent acquiescence were now crystal clear. "I didn't want to disappoint anyone," Emily admitted. "I thought my dreams were too selfish. But I see now that denying myself the chance to grow only adds to that disappointment." Claire's expression softened, revealing layers of empathy Emily had not anticipated. "You're not alone, you know. Everyone in our family has had to navigate their own dreams alongside obligations. I wish I had known earlier. Maybe we could have explored this journey together." The word "together" resonated deeply within Emily, sparking a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this was not only a confrontation but a collaboration, an endeavor she could pursue alongside her family rather than in defiance of them. Finally, she could transform her fears into an opportunity for shared growth. As they stood there, the noise of the gathering around them began to swell once more, but Emily felt an exhilarating shift. She was no longer trapped in the suffocating expectations. She was co-authoring her narrative. The conversation sparked ideas, ignited strategies in her mind, illuminating paths of collaboration she had never considered. Yet amid this burgeoning excitement lay a shadow: the question of how to balance this new commitment to herself with the responsibilities she cherished. What would it mean for her relationships? How would the family dynamics shift if she began pursuing her passions openly? Before she could delve deeper into these questions, her phone buzzed again, another message from her son, and the urgency of family obligations crept back in like a suffocating fog. In that moment of distraction, she felt the pull of indecision once more. Could she sustain this newfound momentum, this eruption of ambition and purpose, once the demands of family life settled back in? As Claire walked beside her, Emily realized that while the journey had begun, the real work lay just ahead. A delicate negotiation of commitments and aspirations awaited her. This was not merely the start of her artistic journey. It was a complex tapestry woven with the threads of commitment to family and self. Emily clenched her jaw, determination rising in her like steam from a boiling pot. She could do this. But did she dare unravel the tangled web of her past choices to carve out a new identity? As uncertainty tugged at her, Emily felt the daunting question loom: would she have the bravery to turn this conversation into a series of actions that could change everything? Her gaze drifted to the vibrant conversations swirling around her, as if signaling the boldness of possibility. With Claire by her side, the next step seemed both terrifying and exciting. Yet unanswered, the tension hung palpably between them. Emily took a deep breath, ready to shape her path. But would she face the cascading consequences of her decision? Or would she retreat into the familiar shadows where doubt lingered? Time was ticking. Emily felt the weight of the moment as she and Claire stepped away from the clamor of voices. The noise faded into mere background chatter, replaced by the rapid beat of her heart and the echo of her own thoughts. The foundation of her life had begun to shift with her declaration about wanting to pursue art, a passion she had neglected for too long. But now, with Claire beside her, she sensed that the journey would demand more than just words. Determined to assert her vision, she decided to take action. "Can we brainstorm some ideas?" The swing of her voice was unexpected even to her, both assertive and tentative. As she looked into Claire's eyes, she saw not just her mother-in-law but a partner, someone who could help propel her toward tangible steps. "Absolutely," Claire replied, her enthusiasm breaking the solemnity of their dialogue. "What have you been thinking?" How can I support you? Emily's mind whirred with possibilities. But how exactly could she channel her abstract desires into a concrete plan? She began to share thoughts about taking evening classes, rejoining local art groups, or even setting up a dedicated space at home to create. Each idea ignited a spark of excitement as Claire contributed her perspectives, weaving in anecdotes from her youth about missed opportunities and unpursued dreams. The realization washed over Emily that this was not merely about herself. As Claire spoke, she understood that pursuing her passion might also provide a catalyst for her entire family. Involving her loved ones in her artistic journey could transform their perceptions of each other. That could be a great family project, Claire suggested, her eyes glinting with inspiration. We could even host art nights or workshops at home. It might not just be about you creating. We could all experience the joy of art together. The prospect thrilled Emily. The idea of fostering a creative environment appealed to her more than she had ever anticipated. Yet, she felt a tremor of hesitation ripple through her. Would inviting everyone into her artistic space blur the lines of her identity? Would it dilute her fervor by intertwining it with familial obligations? What if my art needs to be mine first? Emily pondered aloud, conscious of the tangled web she was trying to weave. What if involving everyone makes it feel less authentic? That could be true, Claire mused thoughtfully. But it doesn't have to be. Your art can exist separately while still allowing others to celebrate it. Think of it as a way of sharing your process, showing them your truth. It could empower you even more. Empowered. The word resonated deep within Emily, igniting a sense of agency she hadn't felt until now. She had spent years thinking of her art in confined terms, believing that the act of sharing equated to compromising her individuality. But perhaps this process, this collaboration, could lead to empowerment rather than dilution. As they delved deeper into planning, an urgency pressed against Emily. Time, the relentless specter of obligations, crept back into her thoughts. I need to speak to Michael about how we can structure this, she said, her voice tinged with uncertainty. What if he doesn't understand my intentions? What if he feels this means less time together? Claire looked at her, understanding etched across her face. You can only control how you express your needs, Emily. Share your vision with him honestly. It's part of negotiating this new space between parenthood and individual identity. As they finalized a plan of action, Emily felt poised on the precipice of change. Unlike before, where she feared disappointment and judgment, she now felt the fluttering wings of potential. It was exhilarating yet terrifying. But what if the very act of pursuing her art meant that she had to confront Michael's expectations head-on? Anxiety crept up again as she considered how best to initiate that conversation. Would he resent her for wanting to redefine their family dynamics? With the buzzing of her phone once again jolting her back to reality, Emily realized her path lay scattered with layers of emotional negotiation. Uncertainty loomed large, intertwining with each decision she now had to make. She could feel herself stretching in ways she hadn't experienced before, teetering at the edge of self-discovery and family loyalty. Could she find a way to reconcile her emerging identity as an artist alongside her love for her family? Emily clenched her fists, breathing deeply as the moment of truth approached. Could she be brave enough to articulate her desires to Michael? Amidst excitement brewed a tempest of doubt. As they headed toward the gathering again, a storm of possibilities loomed ahead. Would they embrace this journey together? Or would the diverging paths of ambition and obligation fracture the core of her family? Emily's heart raced at this new turning point, each step laden with the potential for turbulence. It became clear. The next challenge would not just be about her art, but about holding on to her burgeoning identity, while confronting the fears of losing what truly mattered. The moment Emily returned to the gathering, a rush of voices enveloped her once again. The chatter a sharp contrast to the resolution she had just shared with Claire. Michael stood at the center, laughing with a group of friends, his easy smile an anchor in the chaos. Yet, amidst the jovial atmosphere, a knot tightened in her stomach. The conversations around her seemed to amplify her internal conflict, challenging her determination. As she approached him, she rehearsed the words, longing for a delicate balance between honesty and reassurance. Hey, can we talk for a minute? She called gently, feeling apprehension twist in her chest. He turned, his expression shifting from amusement to curiosity, and motioned toward a quieter corner. Sure, what's up? His tone was casual, but Emily sensed a hint of caution beneath it. The weight of her dreams felt heavier than before, bearing down on her heart with every step they took away from the herd. Here, in the hushed backdrop, she felt the pressure mount. The grand vision of art nights and creative expressions began to crystallize in her mind, but every bright prospect came with the shadow of her insecurities. What if Michael didn't understand the deep-rooted need for this journey? What if he worried it meant abandoning family responsibilities? Michael, she started, her voice trembling slightly at the edges as she sought the right words. I've been thinking about art and how much I've missed it. I want to create, to be involved in something that's mine. He raised an eyebrow, his expression shifting more toward concern than surprise. You're talking about classes, right? I mean, that's great, but how will that work with everything else? Doubt flooded back, each question becoming another wall she had to scale. I've considered setting up a space at home for myself, maybe even art nights where we can all participate. I want to share a part of me, but I'm worried about how it might change things for us. Michael paused, his blue eyes scanning her face, the corner of his mouth quirking into a half-smile. Emily, I think it's wonderful you want to pursue this. But I also see the challenges. We've got the kids and the usual chaos. It might be tough for everyone to commit to art nights. His words stung, unwinding the dream she had just begun to weave. She had projected a sense of camaraderie, a hopeful vision of family togetherness and creativity. But now his response felt like a barrier, reinforcing her fears of being misunderstood. What if this could be a beneficial outlet for us all? She implored, trying to rally her thoughts. It could be a way for the kids to express themselves. It could connect us. They might not be interested in what you have in mind, he countered, each word sharpening her resolve, but also weighing her shoulders with doubt. Would he regard her dream as whimsical? Would he undermine her need for a creative voice because of practical considerations? Michael, I need you to understand why this is important to me, she pressed, yearning to break free from the chains of self-doubt. This isn't just about classes or family projects. It's about rediscovering who I am, about being true to myself. He studied her with an intensity that made her heart race. I get it. I really do. But can it coexist with everything else? Isn't that asking a lot? Is it too much to ask to find your own space within the family? She challenged, aware of the sharpness lacing her voice. Each layer of her conviction unveiled her vulnerability even further. Couldn't he see she was on the edge of reclaiming her identity? Uncertainty flickered in his eyes, and as he opened his mouth to respond, Emily's heart pounded with anticipation. Was this going to be a pivotal moment of connection, or a decisive point of divergence? The air thick with a tension that only magnified with silence, she steeled herself for either outcome. The conversation hung between them, potent with potential for both reconciliation and rupture as the truth began to take shape. Each second felt stretched, a reminder of the urgency she felt toward her emerging identity. Would she find common ground with Michael, or would her hope for artistic expression and family connection unravel before her, leaving her passion hanging by a thread? In this poignant moment, Emily realized the future was not just about her aspirations, but also about negotiating the contours of shared life and love. How far was she willing to go to carve out her space, and what sacrifices would that entail? With that weight settled heavy on her shoulders, she looked into his eyes, ready to confront whatever responses lay ahead. The time had come to face everything she feared. Emily held her breath, anticipation coursing through her veins as Michael's expression morphed, his mouth moving but words faded. It was as if the air around them thickened, and she could feel every heartbeat echoing through the tumult of her thoughts. She needed clarity, not just for herself, but for their family dynamics that were entwined in this very moment. What if, she urged, a sense of fortitude rising inside her? I started small. A sketchbook on the coffee table, an open invitation for art nights, easy entries. She rehearsed her own convictions, saying the words as if painting them in colors bright enough to dispel doubt. It doesn't have to be grand. Just a way to reconnect, to share parts of our lives. Michael's brow furrowed as he weighed her suggestion against the background of their family life, complete with its routines and noise. You really want to devote time to this, huh? It's a big commitment. The hint of disbelief in his tone did not escape her, but she pressed on, refusing to let hesitation consume her. Yes, it is. But doesn't it make sense? The kids are growing up, they can learn to express themselves through art. And for me, this is more than just drawing. It's about fueling a part of me that's been dormant for years. An ember of fervor ignited, pushing back against the knots of apprehension still coiling in her stomach. His gaze softened, but the shadows of concern lingered. We have jobs, kids, there's just so much already. He was trying to be practical, she understood, but the weight of that practicality had become an anchor for her aspirations. How do I explain what it feels like to silence the artist within? She thought, grappling with a kaleidoscope of emotions that made her palms sweat. All I want is a chance to create again, to breathe life into the part of me that's been forgotten. Silence enveloped them, heavy as a woolen blanket, and she could almost hear the ticking of the clock reflecting the urgency she felt within. The dream she had for an art night might not just be about fun. It represented a reclamation of her identity, a bridge back to herself. Finally, she broke the quiet. What if we tried a single night? Just one evening where we could experiment? Do you think you could at least see the value in that? Her voice wavered slightly, but determination edged through the cracks. Michael's expression flickered, caught between skepticism and curiosity. Okay, one night. But if it's chaotic or they're not into it, I don't want to hear about all your grand plans afterward. A rush of relief washed over her, and it was as if the chains of doubt began to loosen. Thank you. That's more than I had hoped. She thought about how this tiny approval might just be the initial glimmer of a brighter path forward. Yet a cold surge of clarity rushed through her as she considered the stakes. What if she failed to create something meaningful? What if the kids were indifferent, and Michael's skepticism was justified? The potential for disappointment loomed like an ominous cloud. You need to believe in this too, she whispered, less a request now and more a plea for herself. As Michael nodded, there was the faintest flicker of understanding in his eyes, and Emily felt an unexpected courage bubbling inside her. But the weight of her own aspirations still hung heavy, reminding her how easily her dreams could be snuffed out by the mundane realities of life. The night felt momentous, filled with tentative hope and budding possibility. Anchored in each other yet brimming with uncertainty, they faced a cusp of change. But the tension remained, coiling in Emily's chest. What if this was merely the beginning of a greater introspection about her life, one where she would have to confront deeper fears beyond art? Would she handle the looming responsibilities of a burgeoning creative life? She shivered slightly, realizing this was just the starting point. The real challenge loomed ahead like an uncharted landscape. Would she find the resolve to navigate and claim her desires against the tides of doubt and practicality? With the taste of possibility hanging in the air, a new wave of determination swept through her. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt the flame of ambition flicker alive. But in its warmth also lay the fear of the trials yet to come. As they turned back to the lively gathering, she felt the weight of her unspoken aspirations. The path before her was now shimmered with hope, yet obscured by the shadows of uncertainty. Would she rise to meet the demands of her dreams? Or would the everyday realities of family life envelop her ambitions once more? The answer felt tantalizingly close, yet just out of reach, and she realized this inner journey was just beginning. The next few days passed in a blur, with Emily oscillating between excitement and trepidation. She found herself daydreaming about art nights, conjuring up wonderful images of her children's joyful faces as they smeared paint and shared laughter. Yet, alongside these visions lurked a gnawing fear: what if the reality fell short? On the morning of the planned art night, Emily stood in front of the mirror, her breath quickening as she scrutinized her reflection. This was more than just an invitation to paint. It was her declaration of intent, a revival of the dormant artist and mother within. Her usual routine, the mundane obligations of laundry, cleaning, preparing meals, felt heavy beneath the weight of her aspirations. As she busied herself with preparations, her mind raced. Michael would return home late from work, and the children wouldn't be home until after school. What if everything spiraled out of control? What if the sketchbook remained blank, untouched? She felt her heart hammering in her chest. a familiar rhythm of anxiety looping tighter. Momentarily paralyzed by uncertainty, Emily stepped back. She decided to take a breath, to ground herself in action rather than fear. Gathering the supplies felt strangely liberating. Assembling canvases, brushes, and colors was reminiscent of the vibrant moments from her youth, a flicker of the artist she longed to reignite. When the kids came home, their energy filled the space, drawing her from her introspection. They bounced through the door, buzzing with chatter, each wearing a colorful backpack. "What is happening tonight?" her eldest asked, eyes glinting with curiosity. Emily smiled, her heart swelling with the time-honored thrill of sharing creativity. "We're going to have an art night. It's a chance to create whatever you want." "Who's in?" The initial silence was punctuated by raised eyebrows and shy glances among her children. Emily felt a stab of disappointment, an echo of the uncertainty that had shadowed her preparations. Did they see her efforts as merely an extension of the mundane? Would they dismiss the evening as another adult whim? As if tuning into her emotions, her youngest piped up, "Can we paint outside?" And her enthusiasm ignited a spark. "Yes. We can set up on the patio," Emily replied, instinctively lifting the weight of doubt. The idea sprouted and soon became actionable. The family moved to the outdoor space, laughter mingling with the sound of paintbrushes bounding against canvas, colors splattering in vivid displays across the table. Emily watched, chest swelling, as her children lost themselves in their creations. But she stalled, hesitant. It dawned on her that, despite their immersion, she had not yet picked up her own brush. The familiar coil of self-doubt wound tighter in her chest. Here they were, fully engaged, and yet she remained on the periphery, a spectator to her aspirations. Just one stroke, she told herself, but as she dipped the brush into the paint, the familiar thrill mingled with reluctance. Would her strokes be meaningful? Or would they be overshadowed by her children's uninhibited expressions? She hesitated, brushing against the blank canvas while listening to her children's laughter, which weaved a tangible thread of encouragement. The sounds shifted something within her. The low hum of excitement, the gentle prodding to create, was something she hadn't realized she craved until that moment. Stepping closer, she began to paint. Each stroke felt like a resurrection, a delicate unearthing of the dreams hidden beneath layers of daily life. Gradually, the canvas transformed under her brush, a blend of colors and forms that began to pulse with vibrancy. But just as she became lost in the rhythm, a single jarring thought intruded. What if Michael returned to see chaos instead of creativity? Would he think this was merely a mess? Would doubt seize him again, winding around her dreams once more? Caught between progress and fear, Emily could feel a lesson unfolding amid the chaos of paint. In this quest for artistic reconnection, she faced her greatest opponent, the skepticism buried deep within, the anxiety that had clung to her for years. As the evening drew to a close, Emily stepped back to look at the collective tableau. Not just her art, but their imprints as a family. The nuance of their collective journey resonated. But as she glanced towards the house, waiting for Michael's return, a new fear settled in, a thread of apprehensive anticipation. Would he truly see the value in this unapologetic creative endeavor? Or would his pragmatism drown the vibrant colors she wished to share? In that moment, nothing felt certain, no matter how vivid the hues engulfed her canvas. The horizon of possibility shimmered before her. Yet the path ahead remained clouded with challenges. What would the evening's conclusion hold? The moment of revelation hinged on Michael's arrival, and the stakes of her aspirations hung delicately in the balance. As she took a breath, ready to embrace whatever unfolded next, the softness of her created world surrounded her with hope, yet tethered to trembling doubt. Would she be able to fortify her newfound artistic spirit against the trials ahead? As the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily stood outside surveying the evening's work, a canvas alive with chaotic yet harmonious strokes of color. The laughter from her children rang bright against the backdrop of their colorful creations. For the first time in decades, she felt alive, transformed, yet still apprehensive about how her husband might perceive her journey. When Michael finally stepped outside, a mix of hues splashed across the patio, echoed the vibrant emotions swirling inside her. He paused, taking in the scene, canvases, laughter, and the sheer joy radiating from their children. Emily's heart raced as he approached, uncertain of whether he would be impressed or dismissive. "Wow," Michael said, his voice laced with surprise. "You really went for it." His gaze moved from the children's playful creations to Emily's own vibrant strokes of color, swirling boldly across the canvas. Hope took root in the pit of her stomach. "It's incredible to see everyone so involved," he continued, his brow softening. "But I'm curious, was this just a one-time gig?" Emily took a deep breath, tasting both fear and earnestness. "No, I hope not. I want this to be a regular thing. It's not just about creating art, it's about rediscovering who I am. Can we make this a part of our family life?" She watched the cogs turn in his mind. This was her moment, a chance to reclaim not just her identity as an artist but also spark a symbiotic shared experience within their family dynamics. Michael looked from her to their children, who were frolicking with paint-splattered hands, joy painting their expressions vibrant as the canvases. "I see it matters to you," he relented slowly. "Let us structure it. Maybe we could find time each week to do this together? It might even keep us all connected." A rush of joy surged through Emily as she realized he was leaning into her ideas rather than pushing them away. This was not just acceptance, it was validation. "Really? You'd be open to that?" "I think it could be good for us," he affirmed, a contemplative smile creeping across his face. "We could map out days where we all commit to being creative together, family art nights. Letting our kids express themselves alongside you." A sense of triumph washed over her. Finally, she felt capable of integrating her artistic ambitions with her responsibilities. With each word they exchanged, the moment crystallized her personal growth. She no longer needed to abandon her passions to fulfill her familial role. Instead, they could coexist. Time stretched on as they elaborated plans for their upcoming family art nights. The conversation shifted from cautious to exuberant confidently. They now explored ideas for crafts, even potential collaborations on projects. Amid this exchange, Emily reveled in their connection, empowered by the collaborative spirit flourishing around their reconciliation of art and family. Suddenly, the apprehension that had haunted her for so long began to unravel. She was not just a grandmother. She was an artist asserting her identity, and her family was acknowledging this newfound frontier. As laughter rang through the night. She recognized her emotional evolution. The insecurities that once defined her life had given way to a solid self-identity and newfound confidence. Emily understood that she could be an involved mother, an inspiring artist, and a cherished family member all at once. The hours passed, and as they wrapped up the evening, the children sprawled on the patio, exhausted but exhilarated, a reflection of Emily's own journey. Together, they conquered a slice of what had previously seemed unattainable. In the weeks that followed, Emily embraced her new rhythm, painting with abandon, nurturing familial bonds, and seeing her world burst with possibilities. She felt invigorated to pursue commissions, participate in local galleries, and even share her journey online, where she found an appreciative community. Acceptance had come not just from Michael but from within herself. She conquered the fears that long constrained her, and took power in her narrative. With every stroke of her brush, she forged new connections, familial and artistic, that led to a fulfilling life. The pathway ahead was promising, revealing a new layer of fulfillment intertwined with laughter and creativity. Finally, she felt at home within her skin, acknowledged both as a loving grandmother and a passionate artist. And with a radiant smile, she whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning. Don't wait even one more second. You need to subscribe now to the channel to follow along with more exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters." Comment below your thoughts and theories about Emily's journey, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You are part of our growing community of transformation.